it was at that moment, and this is us dissecting it because we don't know what.
Well, this was in the moment, right? Like you didn't know, you didn't plan it.
You watch it, and you see this twinkle in her eye, like,
that was
what we did is we give her permission.
Yeah,
and I think that's probably the biggest thing. You know, the parents that don't be on social media, that's the freaking worst thing. It's like, this is the future. It's building your brand, like it or not, man. This is what's happening. It's the real, world as we know it today.
Okay, we're live. We're live. 3, 2, 1, and we're live. So we just got done with your 12-year-old daughter's 6-figure business interview. That was pretty dope, right?
That was, wow. Yeah, it was one of the best stories I've heard. Extremely impressive and inspiring young girl.
Well, you forget that she's 12.
It's like you don't even realize it.
Yeah, what's it like to be her father?
Well, I tell you what, it's you always have to remember that she is 12, but for us, it's like we're used to it, which feels like you're talking to like about a 30 to 40-year-old.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to realize sometimes you have to, like, she is a kid. Mm-hmm. And so it's always really kind of been this way.
Yeah.
Even when, 8, 9, 10, and now it's like even a different level.
Mm. How does that happen? I know, but like Hanson doesn't know. Like if I like 10, 20, 50 years from now, I want to have a daughter. I want to have a child. Mm-hmm. I want to like raise like a prodigy that could, be my retirement. Yeah. So I don't have to make these YouTube videos all the time, right? Man, because it's hard,
Dude, I had a plan, man. Marry a hot wife that freaking does the work, and then freaking, produce some offspring, and bam. That's it, just one.
But how would I do that? What would be like the mathematical, scientifical, like pi to the circle of quadratic equation formula for me to...
Well, since I was a robotics engineer in the corporate world for almost a decade, I can share that. But here's where it came. We made conscious decisions with how we were going to raise our children. We didn't know we were just going to have one before she was actually conceived. And like, for instance, just simple things like we went to an event, and this was my first event I've ever went to. It was about 15 years ago. Hanale's 12 now. And the speaker talked about how your life will change if you take the words no, not, and don't out of your vocabulary. And he goes, try to do that with your spouse. Try to do that for the next week. Now try to incorporate that out of your children, of saying, don't do this, can't do that. Like all these things. And we're like, holy cow, let's do that. And we practiced for 2 years, and it's really tough because subconsciously, it's just so easy to tell kids not to do that.
Well, if she's about to touch like a fire,
then there's an exception, right? Like, don't run in front of her.
Do you say it in Russian? Нет. It doesn't work. Are you Russian?
Yeah. So no, I don't speak any Russian.
No, I was just saying because I was going to say no, but then it just went out as нет.
Yeah. So like those kind of things, like she's about ready to jump in front of a car. No, that's the only thing, but. Consciously, Rhonda and I worked together on our vocabulary and how we were going to speak to her versus just, just things that are, I don't know the best way to describe it. It's just like subconsciously. And now we wanted to be conscious of how we are going to speak to her. And one of the things, here's one thing, we read the Celestine Prophecy before she was born. Mm-hmm. And if you have read that, there's a chapter on there where a gentleman is speaking to the mom, and then she has a daughter right next to her. And the daughter, I think, is like 4 or 5 years old. And she says, ask my daughter the question. And he kept on asking her, no, she's a human being. She's a person. Even though she's 4, ask her. Mm-hmm. And ever since Hanalei was able to speak, we've always said, she's a human. Ask her. So we gave her permission to make choices and to be able to, answer herself. So she, we're not doing it for her. Uh-huh. So these were some of the big things that we did, raising her. And it was more of going to events. Like Hanalei is 12 years old. she's been to maybe 100 or more entrepreneurial events. Now, you're going to be different when you're raised in this environment. So it's not just mom and dad raising her and these are all the things you know. In fact, I find myself learning more from my daughter than I can actually teach her. But these are going to events, listening to personal development, being able to actually we listen to audiobooks and podcasts with her all the time. So
yeah, it's so weird because because I'm aware of that philosophy and how you're like training your daughter. So sometimes when I want to do something, for example, if I want a new design for because she makes these designs are pretty dope. Like, dude, Hanson, you gotta feel this. It's like really.
This is hers?
Yeah, I feel it. It's like really nice.
It's bamboo.
It's made from bamboo?
Yeah, like I only wear these and they're really good for traveling, and the hats are pretty dope too. But whenever I want to get a new design, because it's so cool that you guys are down there, because whenever I just want like a specific design, I just go over and have it done, and they literally cut it up. It's so amazing, man.
That's so cool.
And
so if you don't know, my daughter's a fashion.
Yeah, she's a fashion designer. Watch the interview.
Watch the interview.
Watch it. It's a dope.
And you know
interview.
what? Let me touch on this if you don't mind, because one thing she she's got a million things going through her brain, and but one of the biggest things right now that she's able to do is do collaborations with startups and eco-friendly. Like we're not all on, everybody's trying to do it ourselves. Like entrepreneurs, we all we're this little island, right? It is.
Yeah. I
And
can do it
we
by
try to
myself.
do everything. And so entrepreneurs then eco-friendly, I got these designs, I got this material, but they don't know how to put it together. And so we've actually, figured that out. We have a fashion studio. She's got 6 employees, pattern makers that she's been working with them for 2 years. And it's been stressful for her on, we don't pressure her. She's doing her collection. She does the designs, but now she's at a point where I just want to help others be able to bring those to life. And what's amazing is that when you say that, hey, I can go down to Hanalei's fashion studio, that's what lights her up. Yeah, I can do that design for you. I can help you out. And now there's startup companies that have their, the t-shirts, but using cotton t-shirts, 750 gallons of, water. It's one of the biggest, second biggest contributor to waste. Now she's able to where people can come to her. She can collaborate with different business ideas, different people being in those communities. But now that you can come to Hanalei's studio and okay, it's eco-friendly, right? So now we're expanding more of, it's not just Hanalei, here's her fashion line. It goes way beyond that now.
Yeah, and it's going to be so interesting because they're going to see her entire interview before yours. So they're going to see the product and they're going to be like, okay, well, how did this happen? Oh, let's talk to the mom and dad.
So this is the podcast I want to share with all my friends who are raising kids or
100%.
Because
parenting in general, a lot of people are just following other parents who don't necessarily know what's best, and they're just listening from other parents, right?
Yeah, well, let me even revert it back to when we've been traveling since Hanalei's won. Yeah. We lost everything financially in the real estate bubble. It was actually worse than just the real estate bubble. But we started our journey. We already were working online, and Hanalei's 6 weeks old, and we were we're dead. We're gonna have to file bankruptcy. We have he took all the money. It's we made some bad decisions. I'm not gonna say this bad.
Was this in the United States?
Yeah. What were those bad decisions? So for everyone listening,
I gave my last $250,000 out of my IRA to the guy and his thing, and not only did I lose that last $250,000 for my retirement, but I still owe it on early withdrawal fees.
Yeah,
it's a horrible thing. But I believe that everything happens for a reason. I really do. And so the worst thing can be your biggest asset. So at the time, we're lawyers, lawsuits. It was the worst year and a half of our life. And then having a brand new baby, and then realizing, oh my gosh, everything's up in smoke. And it was at that point from the 4-hour work week to where we're you know what, screw this. My dad, he died of AIDS back 27 years ago. He lived a bucket list life. And because you never know when when today may be your last.
Did you travel a lot before this happened?
Yeah, it was because it was my father. Between the ages of 11 and 16, and this is probably on the other interview, so I don't want to go too much into that. But between the ages of 11 and 16, I knew what death was. I knew that life can be short and you better do something now. And it was based on that where Rhonda and I, we just looked at each other and she's like, I never want to, she made a vow, never put our daughter in daycare. And we're like, you know what, let's go travel the world. And everybody, we got, on social media 11 years ago, people shunned us, ridiculed us. We were the worst parents. How could you do this? She's going to have no home. She's not going to, and now people are like, man, how did you do that? That's amazing. And it really comes down to, for us, a lot of it is like just the heart, right? If it feels right, but if it doesn't, make course correction. Mm-hmm. And because nothing's set in stone. People ask, well, what if she decides that fashion's not for her? Big deal. If she decides to quit, and that's fine. Better
at 12 than at 49.
It's right? Life. It's learning. It's life lessons.
Man, it's so phenomenal because even though we've been talking for a while and I know your story, every single time we have a conversation, I just like get more golden nuggets from that entire spot. And that's kind of like just what I want to talk about because, for example, there's so many people right now that are maybe listening to this. They may be struggling, or maybe they have a business and they have no idea how to scale, or maybe they have a business and they're scaling, but then they're being horrible fathers or mothers to their children. Can you like paint like the picture of what it was like? Because from what I remember, you guys were broke. Mm-hmm. You guys sold everything and you guys started traveling.
Yeah,
and you had,
I think, $12,400 or something to our name.
Yeah, and then how did you survive, right? Because it's one thing to travel, it's another thing to survive.
We already had an online business, so it's not like we jumped out and like, let's go be millionaires on online. We already had a business model that we were affiliates of, and when we set out, it was funny. Right when we made the decision, the first day that we flew over to Hanalei Bay, so we started our travels in Hanalei Bay, where she got her name. We got married there about 15 years ago. And the first day we had like a $5,000 day. And it was kind of like you're like, once you release things, then the money starts to come in. So we already had a business model. So it wasn't like we just jumped in out of nowhere and prayed to God, which most people do.
But most people have an expectation in their head that they need so much more before making that jump. They keep putting it off, right?
It was through the 4-hour work week when doing the mini retirement where not Hanalei Bay, that's freaking expensive, but we were only going to spend there for a couple months and then came to Bali and a whole bunch of third world places where it's going to be much less for cost wise. And we realized that, man, we know we are kind of like ATMs. If we keep on putting the work in, this internet thing's not going anywhere. So,
what do you think is like the main problem that most people are parenting their childs and how they're doing that compared to how you guys have kind of tested your unique way of raising your child?
I think probably the biggest thing, it's a good question because like Hanalei.
Fire question.
I love this question.
Hanalei, we've always allowed her to share her voice. Mm-hmm. And when it was 7, you can watch this on a YouTube video. You pull up, I forgot how we tagged it, but it was 7-year-old fashion designer. We were in Costa Rica, and Rhonda asked her right on video. It's an amazing video. We play this on when she speaks on stage, and she goes, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And so that's the typical. What do you want to be when you grow up? She goes, boom, I want to be a fashion designer. Mm-hmm. And Rhonda goes, you could be that now.
Wow.
And you see this glimpse in her eye, really. And it was at that moment, and this is us dissecting it because we don't know what.
Well, this was in the moment, right? Like you didn't know, you didn't plan it.
You watch it, and you see this twinkle in her eye, that was what we did is we give her permission.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I think that's probably the biggest thing. The parents that don't be on social media, that's the freaking worst thing. It's like, this is the future. It's building your brand, like it or not, man. This is what's happening. It's the real, world as we know it today.
Yeah,
a lot of parents are saying be realistic, or you can't make money doing that. And it's
and this is we've evolved on this. It's not like we had no game plan. We've been writing all this ourselves and just figuring it out. But that's the thing. It's like you go with your heart, if something's not working, you do course correction, right? Yeah. Everything happens for a reason. You just go with that's life. Giving her the permission is the biggest thing. And for me, as a dad and my wife, we work together. We've been working together in the same place since before Hanalei was born. So it gets intense, but I feel that a family business is the most rewarding thing of all time. I don't think it should be separate. Now, not everybody's going to do it. I mean, but to me, being able to work on things together as a family, family is the core of everything, and it's like 50% of marriages end up in divorce. And if you look at really, and I'm kind of going off on this, but if you look at like the divorce and I was raised by a single mother, I turned out all right, but man, if you look at what happens on the families that stay together, on how their offspring, turns out, the percentage is way higher. I guess I got lucky. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so weird because I think this is what your guys' superpower and secret sauce is, to just like crafting such an amazing human being of a child that's basically wiser than freaking Gandalf or Dumbledore, right? Like, and this is gonna be a pretty different metaphor, but it kind of makes sense when I'll play it out. So just like be patient.
Sure. Right, go for it.
So I have like a friend. He's so funny. He's probably the funniest Hispanic. I'm just gonna say Mexican. We could just say whatever. We're authentic.
Aren't you your show.
Yeah, this is a show. So I have like a Mexican friend, and he was telling me a story about his grandma who lived to be a long time, like in her hundreds. And when I was talking to her and asking, well, how did that happen? She was like saying stories about how her mom, when she was like a kid, made her eat dirt in Mexico so that like the immune system would be strong enough so that she would never get sick. Huh. And she was never sick, man. Because you introduce all of those bacteria. I'm not saying for everyone listening, get your kid and feed them some dirt. Yeah. But so many parents right now, and I know by, I could compare the firstborn of some of my friends' kids compared to the secondborn. The firstborn, they clean everything and they sanitize everything. They're worried for them to actually grow up sick. And this is kind of what happened to me. I ended up having allergies, asthma, freaking scared of the world when I was younger. And it was because when my mom and dad had me first, they didn't want to fuck up. So they and it was amazing. I mean, it was great. But when I started seeing the real world, it freaking sucked. I was telling you a story at 18, I didn't know what actual real rejection felt like, or when someone really close to you stabs you in the back. Mm-hmm. And what you did for your daughter is you allowed her to experience what the real world is actually like when she was young.
Yeah. You know what? And we didn't, it was more selfish for us because she was 1 year old. She's a blob, right?
She's a blob.
That's what, they're a blob until they're 3-4 years old, until they can actually talk. So, selfishly, it's she wasn't, people are like, you'll never remember. Of course, she's not going to remember.
What'd you start doing though, when she went from blob to 80-year-old wise investor?
It's just,
that turns down 30 million deals.
We just allowed her, because we never knew that we didn't know her talent until 8 years old, when somebody discovered her as a fashion designer. Mm-hmm. And
can you walk through that? Because I remember you saw the drawing and you're like, damn, you could draw?
Well, she was drawing ever since she was born. So 3 or 4 years old, she's drawing. And I remember she got this Monster High thing. We're living in Panama, on the little Caribbean island of Panama. And for Christmas, she wanted a Monster High in these croquis, I think they're called croquis, and when you draw the dresses on them. And I just thought she was drawing kids' clothes or kids' stuff. It was and for 5, 6, 7, and all the way to the 8 years old, she kept on doing that. And Rhonda, my wife, and I, we had no clue. And it wasn't until our electricity went out in Bali. She was going to school the next day. It was hot. We're we got to go find a place to where we can stay. And we're driving around. It was a horrible night. And we finally went into this little warren, which is this little hole in the wall. And I saw these 2 ladies that had a glass of wine eating dinner. And I said, you got a room? And they said, yeah. I'm like, we'll take it. And when we're having dinner, Rhonda and I, Hanalei started sleeping because it was about 10:30, 11. And the woman, we asked her, we're like, what do you do? And she goes, I'm a fashion designer. And Hanalei just woke up out of the dead blue and said, I'm a fashion designer too. And I remember just looking at Rhonda like, what the frick is she talking about? And the girl goes, if you're a fashion designer, you probably have your sketchbook. She goes, I sure do.
Wow.
And now we're like, what the heck is going on? She goes up and she starts looking at it and keeps on going. She goes, oh my God. She goes, where did she get this from? Which one of you guys are a fashion designer? We're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's kids' clothing, like doll figures or whatever. She goes, no, these are freaking amazing. And they started just having this conversation. We had no idea. And at first we thought it was she's, making it all nice. But then 2 weeks later, we had a get together at our place, and there were some friends of friends, and one of them was a fashion designer. And I said, oh, really? I go, do you mind if you take a look at my sketchbook?
So you pretended it was yours?
Yeah,
making
totally
kids' clothing.
And she was like, these are amazing cuts. Where did you study?
Wow.
And I was like,
wow.
Holy cow.
That's
and then
really cool.
I did it one more time, and that's kind of where it started off.
Wow.
Yeah,
crazy.
So it's really interesting, right? Because I also, for everyone that's listening that maybe didn't see the other interview, and then we can just link that below. You guys are very successful in your own right? Like 7-figure business owners, started literally from the bottom, build yourself up, then crashed, but then brought yourself back, working your asses off to get the life that you want. But here's like the problem, and everyone kind of sees this in terms of parenting and success. It's usually what happens is someone will start off like super broke and they get so freaking pissed on, this is like the life that I have right now, and this won't be what it would be like for my future kids, right? Mm-hmm. Then they work really, really, really hard. They become so successful. They make all this money, and they're like, I'm going to give my child everything that I never had when I was a child. And what happens is now you have kids growing up with all of the wealth, with all of the safety bars and the bumper bars, if you would, of life, so that they're protected. And, that you need money. Oh, here's some money, right? Yeah. Oh, you need more money. Here's some money. And then what happens is one person starts off really hard working. They make a lot of money. Then the kid just turns into the shittiest human being, man. Yeah. You ever meet some of those kids?
Of course.
They suck, dude.
Of those kids.
Oh, yeah. You don't suck, bro. You're the best, man.
Really? One thing that what you said, and I thought you were going to go this direction, but you didn't go this direction, but let me share it, is that there's a lot of times parents want to, and this is for the parents that don't have like the millions, right? And, like trust funds and stuff like that. But let's look at the parents that I want to have a better life for my daughter. And so what they'll do is they'll go to these entrepreneurial events. They'll try to create their brand. They'll try to create this. But what happens is that they freaking struggle. They actually take more time away from, they're doing it for their kid. Yeah. And when in reality, it's like, all right, in today's world, you should be bringing your kid with and freaking learning this stuff together. Yeah. And you should never do it just for someone, because then they will never, never respect it. Like my daughter understands and respects money is because we have her in all, we never exclude her from any business dealing. And that's between my wife and I. If she wants to listen in, it's when we're dealing with employees, if we're firing employees, and it's going through the decision making, because there's hard stuff, and that's life. And like business meetings, when we're going out for dinner, when she was 8, 9, we're like, it's like, oh, people are looking, of course she can come. And it's like, to me, that is the only way. You got to be part of it. I don't know that, and I may just be a freak on that, but I believe that everything should be intertwined. I mean, to me, our relationship, we're as tight as, she's got the relationship with mom. She's got the relationship with me. I respect my wife so much, and, I give her flowers each day. I write her a little note. And when I do that, Hanalei, she gets to see who I am to my wife and how we treat each other. Can you explain that note that you said? Yeah. So about 3 years ago, there was a point, and coming to Bali, and I don't know, I wasn't all on like firing on all cylinders, and you know what?
What do you mean?
Like, I don't know, the relationship with your wife, like, we've been together for 21 years, and there's highs, there's lows, and it's just not I was not living up to my potential. And I still don't think I'm living up my potential today, but I'm doing things every single day to be better for myself, which then I can do it better to be with my wife and then my daughter. But so for instance, I read this book, The Compound Effect. I think it's by Dan Hardy. It was, but The Compound Effect's powerful. And he's saying that there was this point, and I don't know if it was him or if it was his friend, where they're about ready to get divorced, and he's like, you know what, I want to save this, and he wrote a little thing about gratitude, or what he like appreciated about her, and he wrote it one page per day for a whole year, and then he gave it to her at Thanksgiving, and it was like the best present of all time. To me, I'm like, why wait a whole year? So I started doing it. I changed it. I started doing it every single day. So I'm a surfer, and my wife used to be a surfer, but now when I come out of the water, I come home, I picking up flowers along the way. I pick up just flowers, and it takes no time. I write a little note about what I appreciate about her, or something that's really nice, and then I make her coffee. But that's just my daily method of operation, my DMO, every single day. And she knows that she's going to receive that, and she appreciates that. And Hanalei gets to see that's how you treat a woman. And so, that's where it came from.
What do you think would have happened if you didn't do that?
I really don't think we'd be together. Mm-hmm. Like, seriously. I'm like, that's a no joke.
Why would you say that?
Because I was more selfish. Mm-hmm. And just that little bit of generosity and showing that I cared kept her like wanting me, and like, man, he's a good dude. Otherwise, it's like, he just cares about surfing, he cares about this. And over this last year, I've been really open to different things on how I can make our life better. Because 21 years, damn, now we do Muay Thai together, we're doing breath work together, we do events together, and now we have Hanalei as a little catalyst, in between us. Like, what can I do to keep on making that, the life better between us? Because it gets tough after 21 years, man. It's a long freaking time.
It got tough after 2 years for me. I was like, and I think the thing that you did, which is amazing, is the note-taking habit that you created started changing the questions you were asking yourself. Like, for all the times I would, even like in our default state, if we're not actively trying to be optimistic and find the beauty in like all the people that we're around, we try to find the negatives more so, because that's just survival, right?
Absolutely.
Like, oh, this person's out to get me. Oh, this person was like really crappy yesterday. But then you forget all the times that they were like amazing. And it's like so cool to see, because it's so interesting, right? You guys are in a position in your lives where you've spent so much time together that now you're almost taking time apart to almost find yourself. Is that
right now? Right now, we're coming together. We're even more together than ever. Like, for instance, Muay Thai.
Yeah.
So I don't like getting punched in the face. I've never.
And Nico is the one punching your face. No, he's scary, bro.
I know.
Oh, you work with Nico.
You never know, because he's just like, let's go. And punches you in the face.
He's a champion, man. He's a fighter. But Rhonda, she wanted to get in shape. And, I run each day. I surf. So it's, I don't have a real trainer. It's me. I guess it's kind of half-assed. But, like, I get my exercise. I feel, somewhat fit, But she's like, I'm going to have a trainer. He's coming to the house. And I'm like, oh, man. Now I gotta do. I can't just let my wife do Muay Thai while
He's punching my wife in the face.
I know.
Punch me first.
But then what's happening is we're working out together. It's like we're sharing that. Now we're doing, because he's done relationship stuff. We're doing breath work.
So now, Nico, does he look at you like this?
I shut my eyes. But it's now we're getting into that, and I'm actually having an event, Unstoppable Surfers Retreat, and it's not just about surfing. I'm going to do this in October. But it's the women are going to want to say, bring me to this surfers retreat.
Yeah.
And it's because the guys get to surf, but you also get to hang out with like my wife, who's a powerful chick, and my daughter, and like, don't you want to be surrounded with those kind of environments? Anyway, so now I'm going to be sharing what we've been learning over the last few months, and that's going to be part of the part of the thing.
And it's so cool and the reason why I asked this is because you spend so much time with each other. I'm curious on too, because when we met at Mind Valley Mastermind in Copenhagen. That was the first time we
met.
Like that was the first time we had a real conversation. Like we met and we'd always say like hi, and that's like the thing here in Bali. It's like you always see someone that you say hi, and then you meet each other in networking events.
Yeah, very true.
And we didn't actually fully bond and just realize how awesome this friendship was until we actually went to that Mind Valley event. Right? Yeah. It was awesome. It was awesome. I saw parts of you that I didn't even know were there. And what I'm curious about is what was the reason why you went there alone?
Because my wife and my daughter, they were flying to Aspen to go to the X Games because our friend, she's the gold medalist of snowboarding for the last 2 years. Yeah. They were going to hand her custom designs. And I'm like, it was a good fun thing to do, and I would love to do it. But when I was offered that, I'm like, this is the time to where we do Conquer and Divide. And we're not, she's making, and I do say it, Conquer and Divide, because like they're doing that, getting things done. I'm making different relationships and together, that's really what makes it powerful, and it's stepping outside because, and believe me, this is like my daughter is a 12-year-old. Like I used to be called Brian. I'm Hanalei's dad now. Yeah. And it's like, so now I'm like, I'm living behind a shadow of a 12-year-old. My wife, she's a powerhouse. I don't see it that way. And what I'm like, but it's like, I used to be speaking and stuff. Now it's my wife and my daughter. And I'm like, wow, what's going on? And for me, I'm like, no, I'm going to go do this. And they're like, yeah, go do this. As men, you have to be powerful and you got to be able to have your own quest. Right. Yeah. And women want that. And if you're not doing that, and this is, for a while, I started just kind of like, things are good. You girls, let's do this. And I'll do the back end stuff. And I'm a nerd. I'm a robotics engineer. But like, no, I have to go live my highest values, as Hanalei was saying. And, for me, surfing and the value that I can bring, like on this podcast, I know there's parents going, holy shit. Like it's so true. To me, it's just second nature now. But it can change your whole life. Just that simple note thing. I'm telling you, if you just did that alone, it will change your relationship. Your kids, if you allow them and give them permission, talk to them as if they are actually a human being. Take those words, no, not, and don't. It will change your freaking life. 100%.
And I think the biggest thing, and it's so funny because we brought up the Mind Valley event. We're talking about, I'm going to bring out the robotics thing later on because that's an interesting story. So stay tuned for that. But for example, what I witnessed at the Mind Valley event, other than super, like, I don't think I've laughed as hard as I did when we all met up. It was me, you, Gavin, Trinity, and we didn't really all know each other, but after we knew each other, right?
Oh, yeah. And
I think the biggest shift and your superpower is your radical transparency and honesty, not just to yourself, but to the world around you. And I want to like preface this for everyone that's listening. Oh, what do you mean radical honesty? Like I've heard radical honesty all the time. Like, what do you mean, Mike? Moist. Inside joke if you listen to the other podcast. But we were in this circle, and you know where I'm coming from because we haven't talked about this since then. Yeah. That was the funniest circle of my life. And that's kind of like what I wanted this podcast to almost emulate.
Sure.
This setup, the reason why I'm talking to you and not even this camera doesn't exist, is to really emulate. What? This pointing this?
No, get in more.
Oh, yeah. The reason I am not talking to the micro. Okay, here it is. Okay, guys. So for those that are listening to this podcast, and you're probably wondering, why is this podcast so different? They're like very serious, but then he'll cry, but then he'll laugh, but then he'll say something very inappropriate, but then he'll say something super wise, and then bam, knowledge drop. And then they're just all on Kratom, just high on Kratom. It's illegal. So not in the US, I don't know. But this podcast was actually inspired from that conversation that we had at that open dialogue. Yeah. So can you explain your side of the story, and then I'll explain my side of the story?
Well, so it was half Russian attendees, half
Yeah, why was that? There was all
and
it was all Russians.
And not saying it was Russian. It was just like, and we had a lot of women. And so you had the feminine energy, and then you had, us masculine, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that they wanted to do was this sharing circle. I was sick of these freaking sharing circles. And it's like you go around and you're supposed to share. And there were some rules. So when you have these rules, and I'm thinking, I got so many other better things I could do at this time.
I got back end shit to do.
Yeah, I'm gonna make some money, and this is not one of them. And they said the rule is like there's no judgment, and you just go off of each one, and it got so sappy I couldn't hear it anymore. And they're like, express your true feelings. I'm like, I'm gonna express my true feelings. I'm like, I think this is a bunch of crap right now. And I have all the ladies just looking at me like, and you were just like, holy shit, he's actually saying that. I'm like, the greatest thing is like, I'm just gonna take this mask off right now. And I said, there's no judgment. So I'm just gonna tell you flat out how it is. Oh, the exercise we did the other day, and we're talking about how we appreciate and care about each other. And I went around 3 times, and I'm trying to say this to somebody I don't know. That's a bunch of crap. And I'm like, so I'm going to share this with you, that there's a whole bunch of stuff that I just don't agree with. But maybe it's because I'm a man, maybe it's because of you. And they're just like, who is this? And you're like laughing.
Who is
like,
this man?
You're laughing.
Yeah. So that's
I was dead, bro. I unleashed a firestorm after he went.
Yeah, it was. But ever since then, I think that was it got intense. Like they were like, what the heck just happened? But what happened is it brought it back. And at the end, they were like, this was the most powerful,
amazing experience.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, for example, when we did a podcast with your daughter, it's like very easy to get into the interview role where it's not like, what are you authentically feeling right now? So maybe we might have to talk about some bullshit for now until we get into the deeper layer. And for everyone listening, because like Hanson, I haven't like explained this thing. So if like I didn't explain it to Hanson, then probably everyone listening to this doesn't know exactly what the circle is. You probably want to know what the circle is, right?
Yeah, I do.
So the concept of this was an open dialogue, right? Mm-hmm. So you remove everybody from, talking at each other. And instead we were in this giant circle where there was like this energy ball in the middle, and everyone just kind of, instead of talking to anyone directly, they just talked into this thing, exactly what they were feeling. Uh-huh. And it kind of like reminds me of one of those Ubud things where you go to Ubud and like you eye gaze and you have to say some shit sometimes that you don't really necessarily mean.
Yeah.
Like, and especially when they're saying it back to you. So you're like, man, I have to be really nice. Like the look in your eyes and they'll be like, you have an amazing soul.
I see you.
I see you. You are loved.
Well, those are things, man. And if it's not real, it's like bullshit.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like we were going around the circle because you have to say exactly what you were feeling. And the first time, of course, it was normal. It's like, oh, I feel grateful that I'm surrounded by so many people that understand me. And another Russian girl was like, oh, I'm so glad that, like, I don't have to keep a closed mindset and I could talk. It was actually really weird. Most of them are Russians because it was supposed to be a Russian mastermind event, but then they invited me, Brian, and like 3 other Americans last second. And then after 3 times around the circle,
I didn't even know.
You literally see Brian's face.
I was the last one, and I think I think
like, you said like 1 or 2 things, and then the third time you're like, okay, listen, you took off your orange glasses because you had those blue blacker glasses. Yeah. And you're like, all right, listen, I actually wanted to leave like 8 hours ago. I didn't want to hear this. And I was just going to respectfully leave. That's right. But since the rules here is you could say anything you want.
That's right.
And none of you fuckers could judge me. This is how I feel. I feel like this is very inauthentic. I feel like I don't want to be here right now. I feel like there's so much things I need to focus on because I have a wife and a daughter that are actively making money. And I'm sitting here just sharing my feelings. And I feel like it's unproductive. And I really just want to leave. And then after, he was just like, oh, I feel great right now. And then I remember my eyes when I'm seeing you, I'm just like, oh my God, he's being honest. I want to be honest too. This sounds really fun. I was like, yeah, I don't want to be here either. I want to leave. I want to leave too. And then I was like, oh man, I feel really great. And then
Gavin jumped in and Trinity.
Gavin's like, yeah, me too. And then Trinity is like one of my old business partners that we did events. She was like, yeah, in all honesty, I also don't want to be here either. And then as she was saying her truth, what happened is you saw her kind of get lighter, and then you started having her smile. And then in the middle of her conversation, she was like, wow, this is actually so weird. Me telling you guys exactly how I feel, knowing that you guys can't judge me, I actually feel better. I actually feel more energized. And the Russians, man, were like, that is not the rules. Because it was weird, right?
Oh yeah.
What was it like? Because one of the Russians looked at you like she wanted to cut your beard.
She wanted to definitely kill.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was such an interesting thing. I think the reason why they were doing the entire, for those that are listening, they were doing the entire explanation in Russian, so I didn't even understand it. And I was on the phone making some texts, and I came, I think, 5 minutes into it, so I didn't even know what the rules were. Mm-hmm. I just knew I couldn't leave for the next 2 hours.
Wow.
And I had to sit there and say everything. But when you went, what do you, like, what was your experience from that, from feeling all those emotions? Because when you're stuck there and you have to actually express what you're feeling, you react to everyone else, especially when the Russians were angry. Then we had to kind of feel like, I feel like I'm feeling judged right now by the Russians.
No way.
Yeah, like we would literally say it out loud, and then I would feel great. And then, but you couldn't ever single anyone out, and you could never coach anybody.
So you tell this energy ball, I'm feeling judged right now?
Yeah, I'm feeling judged right now.
Yeah, I don't think I said a whole lot after that. I think I said my piece. I can't remember.
Did you leave or you stayed?
No,
I
he
stayed.
had to stay.
I stayed.
It was like, but
Definitely.
How many people are there?
12 in the circle?
Yeah,
12 or 13?
16 maybe.
This is a really
But
intimate circle.
It was actually really weird, because I think the way it worked so well was because everyone was kind of like me versus everybody else. But then when everyone started saying their truths, they started realizing that other people that were signing, they're like, oh, I actually feel that too. And then you go from everyone versing each other to everyone becoming a part of a tribe.
Well, you know what? And here's the thing, to where I was the a-hole, I was the jerk, right?
You were the honest person that made everyone transparent.
Right. And then it's I think that's kind of where I've been most of my life. And even making the decision of going to travel, I was the a-hole, horrible father, horrible parents. And then people were like, wow, turns out all right. You guys are good people. I don't know. I think that's just...
So you've always been following like the core inside you and just not really...
You got to. And you know what? Even when I make a lot of business decisions, you can always feel that flutter, right? That big... if something's right, you can move forward, don't move. It's not like I make every freaking decision right. I still make a lot of dumb decisions. But you can go with the heart, your gut, and it'll lead you. And if you screw up, then course correct.
I think everyone has that feeling, just not a lot of people have the courage to do that,
No, and it did take courage for me to actually do that.
Yeah, in that
Russian... But at the same time, it was like, if this is real, then let me test this.
But it was weird though, because when everyone was honest, everyone started becoming closer to each other. But then this is when it got really trippy, because we weren't the only circle of 12. There was 3 other circles
in
of
the
12
same room.
In the same room.
Oh.
So then, and this is like, it was just one giant metaphor, because before we were so much in our own heads, and we were worried about how other people judged us, right? Kind of like how everyone else right now, like for example, what you were asking, how did you have the courage to actually make a change? Is because he got out of his head, right? Yeah. But then the next level is you have your immediate people in that circle. We all started bonding, even though we didn't speak the same language. It's just because we were sharing the same emotional journey, kind of like this podcast, right? We could laugh, we could cry, we could say something deep, we say something inappropriate. But then we would laugh so hard. Me, like Russian homie over here, that's like 30-year-old person, and then this 50-year-old grandma Russian or 60-year-old grandma Russian, and we're just like all having a blast. And it was crazy, because even like one of the Russians, the one, it was Gil's wife, she was like, okay, I just want to say, I don't like being serious. Why is everyone in this like circle serious? This is...
She was the first one to come to our side.
Oh, she was the first Russian to got on our side.
I'm gonna look at my phone because I think I gotta get going.
We'll be pretty good soon.
Pretty soon.
Yeah, but that was like just finishing off that story is when we were laughing, then the other groups were like judging us. And it's kind of like how we are too busy judging ourselves, but then when we build this tribe, we don't judge ourselves. But then when we have this tribe, there's also other tribes judging us. And it just makes you realize that like everyone's in their freaking heads. So just do what it is that you want to do. So with that being said, I know you have to leave because we had... I
have a glamping.
What is that?
So it's like glorified camping. So there's this thing up in Ubud. So we got 3 nights free. It's expensive stuff. It's like about $300 a night, staying in like a high end tent, but it's like they're extremely, so it's glamping.
Oh, they're like bubbles. They look like the bubble
There's
ones?
bubbles, tents, and everything. So we got 3 free nights because we helped out on some social media marketing and running some ads, and so it's like, hey, that's the thing, collaborations and doing stuff. That's a beautiful thing about what we do. We produce incredible content. People like it, and they're like, "Hey, come here and do this." And it's cool. It's really cool. So we're doing that, and we just decided that about 3 hours ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so sad because I definitely wanted to ask a question on what was it like almost working and saying no to Elon Musk before he was actually Elon Musk, but we could just save that for a future podcast.
So Elon Musk, when I was a robotics engineer, this is not 100%, but I have a feeling it is. So quick one about Elon Musk. SpaceX, this is back in 2000, early, it was way back around, when SpaceX was started. And I got this lead and I had to call this engineer, and it said rocket scientist on it. And so I called the guy. I can't remember if it's Elon Musk or whatever, but I called him and I go, oh yeah, I'm calling you about these electromechanical thrust actuators for space. And so it says he goes, a rocket scientist. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I was thinking it was going to be just a BS sales call. I drive up to El Segundo, California from San Diego, and I come to this, I don't know what it is, but it's SpaceX. And I come in, and I could remember, like he said his name is Elon, but he said, yeah, I'm a rocket scientist. And I'm like, yeah. And then we walk into this room, and there's a freaking rocket. Like, I'm like, you weren't joking. He goes,
you are a rocket.
And he goes, why would I joke? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, there's the huge ass rocket. And we sold 3 of these actuators for the first one. We weren't the ones that made it blow up, but yeah. It
was crazy because I remember I was listening to the Elon Musk audiobook, and there was a chapter where he was like, I was calling all of these engineers, these robotic engineers in I was gonna say Middle East, not Middle East, in the Midwest, right, where you're from, Illinois, U of I. And he was saying every single time I got on the phone, they didn't believe I was a rocket scientist. And when I heard that, I was like, that was definitely Brian.
It was me, probably. I'm sure it was.
You weren't joking. Why would I joke?
It's such a random fact and a random story, but I mean, I think it's just an interesting story, and there's so many interesting stories I think that's going to happen as well. But like I said, I don't want to keep you because you have to go glamping.
How can we end it any better than Elon Musk, man?
Yeah, well, I think the best way we could end it would be very abruptly, other than where can they find you?
All right, unstoppablepamily.com. You can also check out Swan links. We keep that has all of our links of
Swan links.
Swan links.
That sounds cool. Swan links.
Well, that's what you got to do when you're doing like lives and stuff. It's it's something that's easy to remember, and man, people type in that stuff. So swanlinks.com. Swanlinks.com. It's
Yeah, we could actually press one of these and then.
Let's see which one.
Yeah, can you please do the
What's
music?
your favorite color?
What's your favorite color?
I like green. Yeah.
Green?
Okay, press that. That's the worst.
I think that means I'm getting the boot, right?
Yeah, well,
I'm getting is that where the cane comes out and grabs the neck?
Yeah.
No.
Except they grab you by the beard.
Swan links.
It's gonna be one of those old Russians from the circle, like you said your truth and I'm angry. Yeah. With that being said, thank you so much for showing on the podcast, man.
Right. Cheers, guys. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, see you in the next one.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Fist something.
Ciao, ciao. Ciao.